Matt, just a quick question. Just city and state, you don't need to know a precinct? Okay.
Okay, we
Thank
are
you.
live on YouTube. And I'm going to turn the recording on. Wonder if Vince is having any difficulty.
Yeah, we're still absent. Oh, there's Kelly, and then looking for Michelle.
Yeah, I thought I got a text from Michelle, but it may have been somebody else. Hold on. Okay, Kelly's here. Oh my gosh. All right, I just texted Michelle.
Okay.
I wonder where, I haven't heard from Vince. Has anyone heard from Vince?
I saw him.
Okay.
I'm not able to get in.
Do you want me to send, does he need me to resend him the link?
Would you?
Yes, please.
Sure.
I know it's 6 o'clock, but we'll pause here for a couple minutes. We see if we can get the final couple that are attempting to get in currently. For those that may be online already.
All right, I resent his link to him, and I also emailed him the public link.
Okay, very good. Let's take a moment, and of course, there's Councilwoman Germaini also.
She hasn't responded to my text yet. So.
Okay. Mr. Green has his hand raised.
Councilwoman Germaini, does anybody recognize, is that possibly her phone number? Is it Coleman?
Yeah, that.
It's not a phone number that I have for her.
I don't see the number, but I know that it comes out of her residence.
I believe that phone number is Rob White.
Okay.
I recognized it from other meetings, so
Okay.
Yeah, I have not. Could someone else send her a text as well? Maybe she just.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, she's trying to call in. Her internet. She's having some difficulty with her internet. So, 1 second. All right. I just sent her some information that might help her.
Okay, we'll see if we hear a response back, and
Okay.
I sent a message also, so
Okay.
give it a couple minutes.
And then, do we still see Jeff Green?
I just saw it.
Oh, there he is. I moved him over to panelist.
Mr. Green.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yay!
we can hear you.
Okay, I think we're prepared to start the meeting. Clerk, are you?
Yes. I'm ready.
Okay, very good. Well, it's 6:06. We'll call this City Council special meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Germaini,
Here.
Lamore,
Here,
Felder,
Here.
Whitman,
Here.
Echoangeli,
He's excused.
Vining,
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Present. I see Mr. Buds has his hand raised. I know that we have to make a comment here as we initiate. So I'll start, and then I'll have Mr. Buds, I think, follow up with some additional. So we are holding this official city council meeting remotely. As we're aware that there's been some adjustments and changes to Lansing legislator and the governor's executive orders, as well as legislative action, which requires that we state that we've are doing this remotely. Of course, we're still within the mayor's state of emergency as we continue with that, and it's being held remotely due to the COVID-19 pandemic that continues. So, Mr. Buds, I think if there's some additional information that you need before we start.
Yes, Your Honor, I guess just briefly, that's correct. The legislature did pass what I will call a fix to the Open Meetings Act issues relating to remote meetings in light of the Supreme Court's decision regarding the validity of the governor's executive orders. And as part of that, that preamble was necessary to state that this meeting is being held remotely due to the COVID pandemic. And I would ask, as part of our role for the each member present, that the elected members of the council would need to indicate where they are participating from to be in compliance with that new provision of the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you. And we just kind of chatted about that. Clerk LaVoie, I think we'll have to go through that again, so we state our location of.
Sure, that's fine. I have a question for Mr. Buds. Do I need to state where, since I'm not part of the roll call, or do I just need to include that in the minutes?
I would, for purposes of our record here, just have you state where you're located so that we don't have any confusion, since you're an elected member of the body. Just so
Okay, so I will go ahead and do that and then call the roll and have everyone say where they are. Okay, so Michelle Lavoie, Clerk Treasurer, City of Monroe. Germaini?
Michelle Germaini, City Council, Precinct 4, Monroe City.
We just need where you're located on this virtual meeting this evening, correct, Mr. Buds?
in my home, so.
City of Monroe was fine.
I'm in
That's
my
good.
home.
That's good.
Okay, good.
Lamore,
Brian Lamore, City Council, Monroe, Michigan.
Felder,
322 Crampton, Monroe, Michigan, 48162.
Whitman,
Paula Whitman, Monroe, Michigan.
Vining,
Kelly Briney, City Council, Monroe, Michigan.
Mayor Clark.
And City of Monroe, so I'm present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buds. We just talked about that, and here I didn't mention it. So that started. Next item, please.
We have the invocation and the pledge. So I will start with the invocation. Guide our working together. Give us wisdom to make the right decisions, your understanding to listen to each other, and your compassion to promote the peace and welfare of this community.
Thank you. And if all would join, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United
of the
States
United States of America,
And
and
to the republic,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty.
with liberty and justice for all.
So we did get through that. Okay. Next item, please.
The next item are any amendments to the agenda.
I'll see if there's any amendments. Administration, I'm not aware of any. Mr. Pastou.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just and related, not to any business related item, but under communications, what's kind of functioning as our work session tonight, I would drop item 2934, which is refuse collection policy in downtown. But also in its place, I would like to add a discussion regarding a Mellon Institute monument project. Mr. Cochran will talk a little bit about that. So.
Hey, Mr. Buds, being that it is an agenda item in addition as a change, does that require that, because it's under communication, does that require a vote to amend?
Your Honor, because we're not in a traditional, as we would normally do, a work session, since it's a matter of the formal agenda, I would recommend that we have a motion, a second, and a vote on amending the agenda as recommended.
Okay, I'll just review that Mr. Pastou is asking that number 2934 under communications to be removed. And we also add an item regarding the Mellon Institute grant project. Councilman Lamore.
Yes, Your Honor, I recommend that we remove item number 2934 under communications, and we add discussion for or regarding the Mellon Institute monument.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilman Felder, as stated for the amendment to the agenda. Before we take a roll, were there any other amendments? I see none. So with that, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Germaini,
Yes,
Lamore,
Yes,
Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes,
Vining,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item are citizen comments not related to an agenda item.
So as we start this next item on the citizens' comments, because we have them at the beginning of the meeting, we also have them at the closed meeting. There's a public comment statement from administration, and I'll follow up with a comment as well. Mr. Pastou?
Thank you, Your Honor. It's our understanding that an individual or group of individuals may use the public comment section of tonight's agenda to attempt to engage in a dialogue with individual members of the council regarding recent rallies held in the city of Monroe. Again, as a reminder to all, the city does not support the use of threats, violence, or intimidation in connection with any political or social movement. Moreover, as a matter of policy and practice, the city does not support any discrimination, harassment, or bullying based on race, ethnicity, religion, or any other constitutionally or legally protected class of individuals.
Thank you, Mr. Pastou. You know, I just have a comment as well as we open before the public comments. As council always has, and we welcome comments, and we all welcome concerns that are called into the city during our meeting. We have it placed at the beginning, we place it at the end. It's sometimes for convenience for those, because at the beginning, they may not have an item that they are staying for. Others may come later. But, you know, as Mr. Pastou said, you know, we've had a number of protests and demonstrations in recent months without incidents. The council takes seriously the oath and obligation to uphold the Constitution under the First Amendment, protecting freedom of speech and lawful and peaceful assemblies, regardless of the substantive message of the group. And I think that's commendable not only to our community, but also the residents, and understanding how that's done. You know, we recognize the times that we're living and the acknowledgement of the rights of members of the public to participate in our meetings. And that's pursuant to the Open Meetings Act. And I think we've been very, very receptive to permitting those to speak. As always, the public comments are directed to the presiding officer, which is the mayor's seat, and is encouraged in accordance with the Michigan laws and rules of the chamber. You know, public comment period is really to hear about the items that a resident or a caller in may have. It's not necessarily I'll say a start point for the dialogue or the debate. And a council person may, in the future, take up a topic of requesting further involvement of the administration, and maybe even bring forward motions from those items. So I think, as Mr. Pastu said, I think that the council in the past and in recent times has supported that we're not going to support the use of threats, violence, or intimidation in connection with any political or social movement, and that we don't support any forms of discrimination, harassment, bullying, let's say, race, ethnic, religion, or other classes of individuals. So I think we say that because I know there's statements they're looking for from people. But I just want to give a review of that as we start our citizens' comment. I don't know if that's somebody that's muted or not, or some background, but at this point, the agenda, next item is citizens' comments not related to an agenda item. Are there any of those present this evening that wish to speak not related to an agenda item? And I know clerk will have to manage this together as we always do.
Yes. So the first person that is hand raised is Cole Bean. So I will move Cole into the queue.
All right. Well, welcome, Cole. I think I can hear you now, if you would, please. And reminder of the rules of the chamber of our 3 minutes. I didn't review all that, but we'll start. Cole.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. I'm Cole. I'm 48162. I'm going to read my letter. So as you all may know, as you addressed, Sunday, October 11th, a group called the Proud Boys held a rally, an official rally in Monroe at the Custer statue. The Proud Boys were founded in 2016 and labeled as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center in 2018. U.S. intelligence agencies like the ADL have described them as a dangerous white supremacist group, and the FBI has been watching individuals within the group for potential violence and domestic threats. Several of their members have been convicted of violent crimes. On the surface, the all-male members must commit to being, quote, a Western chauvinist who refuses to apologize for creating the modern world, end quote. Chauvinism, as defined in the dictionary, is excessive or prejudiced support for one's own cause, group, or sex. The articles on their official page focus heavily on transphobia, misogyny, homophobia, and Islamophobia. Despite boasting members from various ethnic groups, they believe their Western culture is under attack, their rhetoric echoing elements of white genocide conspiracy theories, and their proclivity for attracting white nationalists shows a different story from what they claim. Their actions speak louder than their words. In Monroe, these men got into shouting matches with our youth, broke Katie Beth's phone, and argued with a priest from St. Mary's. Their presence in our city encouraged many from our own community to shout words of anger and flash middle fingers at those of us who did not let this rally go unchallenged. A member from another group called the Boogaloo Boys, whose members say they are preparing for and seek to incite a second civil war, also made an appearance. The Wolverine Watchmen members, who were recently arrested plotting to kidnap and murder our governor, had ties to this Boogaloo movement. As you said, the First Amendment protects freedom of speech and right to protest. It also protects hate speech as well. But I would like to leave you with the following quote by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in an article about genocide prevention. In this quote, hate speech is a menace to democratic values, social stability, and peace. As a matter of principle, the United Nations must confront hate speech at every turn. Silence can signal indifference to bigotry and intolerance, even as a situation escalates and vulnerable become victims. Addressing hate speech does not mean limiting or prohibiting freedom of speech. It means keeping hate speech from escalating to something more dangerous, particularly incitement to discrimination, hostility, and violence, which is prohibited under international law. By enhancing global resilience against this insidious phenomenon, we can strengthen the bonds of society and build a better world for all, end quote. So I'm only asking that every member of Monroe City Council in leadership roles do what our president could not, and clearly and without equivocation denounce white supremacy, reject transphobia, and tell the people of Monroe that while the Proud Boys may have their right to protest and rally, they don't have your personal support in their messaging in our leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Cole. Clerk Treasurer, I think there's a couple other hands raised. If you would, we'll cue them in and get their.
All right. We have Danny Hoover.
Hi there, I'm Danny Hoover and I live in Monroe County, and I agree with the sentiments that Cole has expressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny.
All right. Next we have Sophie Langerman.
Sophie, can you hear us?
Yep. Hey, all. Sophie Langerman, 48162.
Okay, Sophie.
Yes.
There's different, I know Cole on the residents, but 48162 has multiple jurisdictions of residents. So it's either the city of Monroe or Frenchtown or another.
City of Monroe.
Thank you.
Yep. I agree with Cole's statements. The FBI and DHS have both condemned white supremacy, as well as linked these groups to domestic terrorism. There's no argument against that. And we'd really like a strong statement from our Monroe Council members to stand against white supremacy as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next is Helen Harrigan.
Helen, Helen?
Yep. Helen Harrigan, 48162, City of Monroe, St. Mary's neighborhood. I also concur with the sentiment that the Proud Boys are not welcome in our community, and that their white supremacist agenda must be denounced by our leadership. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Helen.
All right. Next, one second. Next we have Morgan Roberts.
Hi, I'm Morgan Roberts. I'm from Frenchtown. And I also denounce the white supremacy and agree with all the statements Cole has made.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. Clerk, next person.
Next is Kellyanne Navarre.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Kelly, if you would, your name we have now and your address, please.
Okay, my name is Kellyanne.
Or location of residence. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, I am in 48161 in Monroe, but I'm in LaSalle Township.
South Township, okay. Almost not here, but go ahead, please.
I am here to state my support and agreement with the messages of everyone who spoke before me. I denounce white supremacy and groups that represent these ideologies. I reject transphobia and Islamophobia. Other than the examples given today, primarily by Cole, the Proud Boys held up symbols of white power towards us. This should have no place in our community. Monroe should be beyond that. Groups like this can perpetuate an unsafe environment for Black and Brown people and disabled and LGBT groups, because the core beliefs and messages of extremist groups and white supremacy are known to have strong ties against all of these groups. The histories and beliefs are codependent and intertwined, and it is why we come together. Research is very clear on this, and if anyone listening would like, I would be happy to send resources, and I will never be neutral towards any groups that threaten the well-being of the members of our community, especially the most vulnerable, no matter how they disguise and mask themselves. And I would like to end by stating there is something deeply wrong and unsettling here when an extremist group such as this feels it's okay coming to Monroe and doing and saying what they did to some of them Black and Brown LGBT disabled members of our community. I think it's important to assert dignity for them and their existence. Our community deserves more than this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kelly. Clerk, next person, please.
1 second. Katie Beth Davis.
Katie Beth?
Good evening, Katie Beth Davis, Pleasance Road, Monroe Township. A couple weeks ago, City Councilman member Brian Lamore accused me of being a racist. I can't even tell you what that begins to feel like being a minority. That's basically not even possible for me. But the fact that when I was alerted that the Proud Boys were in fact having a demonstration, I was there. I came to counter protest them to let them know that it was not acceptable for them to be there. At first, I was the only person there counter protesting them. And while I was there, as some of you may know, I tend to film things. And I filmed what was really very unsettling was that Councilmember Brian Lamore in his white Jeep Compass with his wife and daughter in the back seat had just freshly bought some fall flowers. I believe they were orange or yellow. I'd have to look at the video again, but he reached across as the window was rolled down and he gave them a thumbs up and said, "Thank you guys, thank you." And shake your head, and it's on film. Anybody can watch it on my Facebook Live, but the fact that you smiled, waved, nodded at them, the fact that you did that within not even a week's time called me a racist when I'm literally screaming Black Lives Matter every single day of my life. I would like you specifically, Brian Lamore, to denounce white supremacy.
Katie Beth, your comments are through the chair. As I know what you're, you can make your comments, but it's not a direct conversation with council. Continue.
Okay, I would like to have the entire city council and the mayor and everybody that sits on the city denounce white supremacy, denounce racism, and denounce any sort of hate group. And that is all my comments are. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie Beth. Clerk, next item, please.
We have, let's see. We have Cody.
Cody?
Wait, I don't know if wait, hold on, sir. Yep, Cody should be able to go ahead and speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Cody, your location of residence.
City of Monroe, South Macomb Street.
Very good.
I want to say that I agree with Cole. I do not support the Proud Boys as an organization, and I do not agree with their Eurocentric and ethnocentric ideas and their enabling of other white supremacist ideas. And I want to point out that their main focus, claiming to be Western chauvinists, is to put forth their limited idea of what Western civilization is and should be, and claim that it is the best form of civilization for all. And as an autistic person who has a disability that affects my ability to socialize, I have to say that I do not view it as the best because so many Western civilizations, including that of the United States, are very unaccommodating to autistic people like me, as well as other disabled people. And so I disagree with organizations like this who ignore the difficulties that those like I and others have in this society. Thank you.
Thank you, Cody. Clerk Lavoie.
All right, I do not see anyone else. Yeah, I don't see any other hands raised, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. And of course, at the end of the meeting, there's opportunities for citizens' comment as well. With that, clerk, next item, please.
The next item is under council action. Item 2923, former Lazy Boy World Headquarters site, Phase 1 design authorization increase.
Thank you. Mr. Pastu, maybe a review if you would, and then we can get to council action.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to have Mr. Lewis give a brief overview of the engineering work that we've done at the Lazy Boy site to date. Obviously, there was some initial work with design related to Holiday Avenue extension, plus additional, a lot of work related to stormwater detention calculations, retention and retention with it, as well as wetlands investigation. And then with our subcommittee group, a change was made related to narrowing Holiday Drive. So there's been a lot of activity out there. We're kind of using this as an effort tonight to kind of reconcile all of it and move forward with the rest of the work that needs to be done with this project. And so, Patrick, if I'll let you give a brief overview of what's transpired. I know you did that with your spreadsheet.
Mr. Lewis.
Okay, Honorable Mayor and Council, Patrick Lewis, Director of Engineering and Public Services. Mr. Pastu kind of gave the really brief version of it. I'll give a slightly more elaborate version of that. I apologize for the haunted house theme behind me here at my back porch. So hopefully everybody can see me okay. All right, so as I sort of detailed on the spreadsheet here, the City Council has acted on with two, I'll say, kind of wide-reaching approvals for this site. And they go way back to the end of 2019. One of them was a topographic survey award, and then the other one was sort of an all-encompassing engineering design process. And that would be baseline work for roadways, storm sewer, sanitary sewer rerouting that was needed for the site, some sidewalk work, et cetera. And as we find with a lot of properties within the city, especially something this large and far-reaching, as well as a building that's been on the site for many, many decades, we found a number of other challenges that transpired as we went along here. So what I've done with the spreadsheet is kind of laid out there each one of those tasks as far as where we're at with expenses on each one. And I'm asking, as you can see from your fact sheet, I'm asking for council to up their overall authorization for the site to $350,000. That's an increase from $265,000 that is right now. But I'll detail some of those challenges, as Mr. Pastu, I think, alluded to. We had one of the bigger surprises that we found in the southeast corner of the property in the area that was not ever developed. That's east of Huber Drive. And that was that we found some regulated wetlands. So first order of business to prepare that for residential development is we have to do something with those wetlands. So that involved additional costs to delineate those wetlands and start to come up with some alternatives. A couple other things that I don't want to say derailed, but we've had to take some detours and go down some multiple paths. And one of those is the drain. Mason Run drain goes through the site. And while we anticipated what we call daylighting, and that's taking that drain and opening it up, actually the building was built over top of it. We had quite a few more hours involved in that than expected because of, I'll say, a significantly greater involvement in the details from EGLE, which is the Department of Energy, Great Lakes and the Environment. So DEQ was the forerunner of that agency. So we've had some additional costs related to that. We have had some additional work related to the traffic study. The MDOT permit includes both the right turn lane and the traffic study, traffic signal modifications, but MDOT required an impact study. We didn't think the site development necessitated that, but nonetheless, they are the regulatory agencies that we have to address their concerns. One of the other things we found that was a surprise was that Buckeye Cable had some underground lines that ran up what would be Huber Drive extended going north towards Stewart Road. And those also needed to be delineated. We need to get some depth information on those, and ultimately had to do some redesign of the site because they were kind of in the way of one of our storm sewers and sort of formed like a blockade, if you will, from trying to get any of our other utilities through there. And then, as Mr. Pastu mentioned, we did have a few design changes once we got rolling and looked at making some narrowing of Holiday Drive. We didn't need it to be 36 feet throughout the site, as well as a few here and there landscaping changes, things that really hadn't been thoroughly delineated the exact form. We had them shown in the concept plan. So, and then we have a few other things that are listed on here that the developer will be reimbursing for, some additional soil borings and things like that. So it's one of these things where, as you know, council, you have the authority to, you have the sole authority to approve expenditures over 15,000. Tasks under 15,000, theoretically, the administration can approve of. And if you were to take a lot of these things that I've just delineated for you, by rights, the administration could approve each one of those as an individual standalone contract under 15,000. We didn't feel that was appropriate because this is all part of a larger design process. But what we're basically asking you to do now is I'm laying out the costs, showing you where we're at with those. We're at approximately 330,000. We're not 100% completed with phase 1 design. So I've asked that we up the overall authority for spending to 350,000 for phase 1 engineering services. And then Mr. Pastu didn't mention it, but we'll be back here shortly with some additional proposals for the next phase of development, including the biddable set of plans for the traffic signals, and then the phase 2, which will be the residential component, extension of Holiday Drive, extension of Huber Drive. So that'll be a completely different process. But for right now, we wanted to kind of close the books on the phase 1 work and get the consultants paid on that. So hopefully I know that wasn't exactly brief, but this kind of money probably requires a little more elaboration than the fact sheet could provide. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. And I'll see if there's any inquiries from council on item 2923. And if not, a motion is in order. Councilman Lamore, you have your hands raised.
Yeah, just making a motion, Your Honor.
Okay, we can make a motion.
Spending authority for design activities for phase 1A of the Lazy Boy redevelopment project for the Manic and Smith contracts be increased up to $350,000, that the Director of Engineering and Public Services be authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the city, and that the Director of Finance be authorized to set up any necessary accounts and make any necessary budget amendments.
Michelle will second.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilwoman Germaini on item 2923. I'll see if there's any other questions or comments from the council. Councilman Felder.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. The initial bid was for 265 and we're at 350 right now.
That's correct. We actually had the initial 265 was actually split into 2 tasks. The first one was the $33,000 award for the topographic survey. And then there was another one for the 232,000. And that was, there were about, I think I may have attached the original proposal, but there were about 14 different tasks on there. And as we mentioned, there were a few of the additional expenses were, I'll say, those tasks that had to be expanded due to things we found on the site. And then there were some that were just flat out new tasks. And that's where we got into the expansion. And I'm bringing this to you now because we have invoices that exceeded that 265.
Okay. And there's just stuff that we didn't see till we got in there, sort of thing. What are we doing with the wetlands? What's the plan there? What's the requirements from Eagle? We're
going to have to mitigate offsite. So we're securing it. We're securing a private offsite location for those. Sometimes, depending on the quality and adjacency of those wetlands, they'll let you mitigate on site. But we have the double-edged problem here where the property is more valuable in the city than it would be to mitigate offsite in a rural area. That's for starters. And with the small amount of wetlands and the quality of them, they just didn't feel that we could mitigate on site. So they're requiring us to mitigate offsite.
Will that mitigation require property acquisition?
It won't require property acquisition. We would essentially buy into a good example is something like the Crosswinds Marsh next to the landfill on the north end, adjacent to Monroe County, just south end of Wayne County. Someone will build a site like that, and we'll have available acreage that then will be, cities can participate in that, or outside entities that need to mitigate wetlands, and then kind of, I don't want to say kill 2 birds with 1 stone, but that's essentially what happens is that there's a higher quality wetland in a location that can truly establish that, I'll say that habitat.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other comments, there's a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Germaini?
Yes.
Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Whitman?
Yes.
Vining?
Yeah.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is item 2930, Professional Services Award, Pre-Demolition Environmental Services, Old Central Fire Station.
Thank you. Mr. Pastu?
Thank you, Your Honor. I wanted to put this in front of City Council. As you know, their city engineering department has coordinated a lot of the demolition projects over the last couple of years that we have, and certainly the fire station is Central Fire Station in Scott is one. We have a proposal from AKT Peerless to do the environmental assessment related to the site, as well as prepare any bid specifications for that. So we're asking council to go ahead with authorizing the proposal in the amount of $17,400, not to exceed $20,000 encumbered.
Thank you. Any comments from council? If not, a motion. Councilman Lamore.
Just making a motion, Your Honor. I make a motion that the attached professional services contract for the pre-demolition environmental services for the former Central Fire Station be awarded to the AKT Peerless in the amount of $17,400, that a total of $20,000 be encumbered to include a 15% contingency, that the Director of Engineering and Public Services be authorized to sign the agreement on behalf of the city, and that the formal competitive procurement process be waived.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilman Whitman on item 2930, the professional service award as stated. Any final comments from council? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Germaini,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda, and for approval of payments, the amount should read $1,876,622.82. 1876622.82.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda the council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Items on the consent agenda council wishes to have discussed. Seeing none, are there any items on the consent agenda, those present here this evening on our virtual meeting, wish to have pulled for further discussion? If so, you'll have to raise your hand, get the clerk's attention. If there's any items on the consent agenda you wish to have further discussion on.
I see none, Your Honor.
I see none as well. With that, a motion will be ordered regarding the consent agenda. Councilman Felder.
Thank you, Your Honor. I motion that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted.
Support.
I thought I heard one, but I wasn't sure. Okay. A motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilwoman Whitman, that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Germaini,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Vining, Mayor Clark.
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is communications, and the first item under communications is item 2932, discussion property assessing reform, designated assessor.
Thank you. And it's a nice agenda as we get to the communications. Mr. Pastu has a variety of topics he's presenting to council for discussion items. There's not necessarily decisions. There's not motions here, but the idea is to start the dialogue as we move forward potentially on these items. Mr. Pastu.
Thank you, Your Honor. This item involves implementation of Public Act 660 of 2018 related to what's called designated assessor. Very, very confusing as a result of the title and some of the bureaucratic acronyms that are used. But currently the State Tax Commission does audit every local assessor every 5 years for compliance with the property tax code and regulations. And if a community is deemed non-compliant by the State Tax Commission, the local assessor, working in conjunction with the Tax Commission, will develop a corrective action plan. If the corrective action plan is not implemented by the local assessor, then the State Tax Commission would take over the assessing to bring it into compliance. The significant change with Public Act 660, and that's what's being presented tonight, is that we're looking at the designated local assessor of record can perform this role for the State Tax Commission in addressing noncompliance if the corrective action plan is not implemented. In this case, it would be the Monroe County Equalization Department. As part of it process, we would designate Equalization Department as an assessor of record. And is necessary in candidly, most of the communities, a majority of the communities in Monroe County would have to approve this as well in order to make the equalization director responsible for this role. And it's done via interlocal agreement. You know, city administration supports this. It's doubtful that we'll have any impact on Monroe's office. You know, recently retired assessor Sam Geisch operated a very high functioning operation and frankly a model for all communities. And we're not worried about the non-compliance, but we think it is good that if there is a local unit within the county that does run into problems and cannot meet their corrective action plan, that the county equalization would intervene and help with them in bringing this into compliance. And so again, because of all the acronyms associated with it, the title is confusing. I just wanted to introduce it to City Council tonight, and the intent would be to bring it back for approval at the meeting on November 4th, or November 2nd, I'm sorry.
Councilman Malloy, you have a question?
I do. I think maybe a little bit further description on this to understand completely that with this designated assessor, you have the possibility, and I know it's very extreme likelihood that it would happen in the city of Monroe, but it could happen in some of the townships and some of the other municipalities surrounding us, that there could be, in essence, a conflict of interest from the equalization department of the county performing this duty. And like I said, it's very, very extreme event that would happen to the city of Monroe, but it is a possibility, and that's something that we have to consider when we take this vote as to adopt it for the city of Monroe. And I just, if you could further explain that, Vince, that would help out maybe a little bit to kind of maybe interject what you, I know that you think that this is a no-brainer, let's just do it, but I think that people need to know that there is a possibility, and it's not a very high likelihood that it would ever happen. But if the county equalization department is involved in this, that it could present a conflict of interest to the assessing in the city of Monroe. Correct?
Well, if I may, through the mayor.
Yes.
You know, first is it's only going to happen is if a local unit is not able to address their, you know, their corrective action plan that had been agreed upon. And the alternative is, and frankly, I think we would prefer to keep it with a local organization or entity as opposed to running something like that through the state tax commission. And you know, they really don't want it either. They just want to make sure that things are brought into compliance with the code and regulations. The second thing, and it's very clear, is that I think the last sentence I put in my report is this is not an effort by the county equalization to take over local assessing. It's just a corrective action plan. It's not an attempt on anything else in that manner, but it is it gives local authority to correct you know, problems that may exist with a agency or local government that's not meeting the standards of the state tax commission.
Very good. Other comments from Mr. Pastu? And we'll look forward to that as we move forward with our agendas coming at the November 2nd and beyond.
Your Honor, if I could also just answer one more piece, and it may get a little closer to where Councilmember Lamore was going. There is no conflict of interest from my standpoint. The auditing will be done by the state tax commission, not the local equalization department. So where there is a problem, it'll first be identified by the auditors with the state tax commission.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pastu, your next item.
Oh, let's see. I'm actually going to have, this is regarding a proposed amendment with IHM and the city of Monroe's PUD agreement. Mr. Green and Mr. Cochran can provide council with an update on that.
Very good. I guess Mr. Green will start there.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Jeffrey Green, Director of Community Development. As Mr. Pastu indicated, Mark Cochran and I have met with the IHM regarding a amendment to the PUD agreement that is currently in place. And actually, the agreement's been in place since 2001. What they are doing are making some changes at the site, at the complex. Most of the changes are interior changes, and we won't really even notice them on the outside. But what they're hoping to be able to do is, with these renovations, is really go back and amend that agreement, adding some new things that are going on there, as well as updating some things that have been happening and really weren't recorded with any kind of amendments. The proposed text changes in the agreement, and the agreement references section 9.2 of the zoning code, which is really a CO office district and uses found under that. One of the amendments would basically change that to a C1 local commercial district uses. And of course, not all of those, but as the IHM has told us, they're not seeking a blank check to do anything, but rather looking for some flexibility for future development and future uses that are not specifically called out now, but which may fall in line with the general intent of the IHM and what their goals will be in upcoming years. It being the amendment also identifies uses that have been taking place and are now open to the public, as I indicated. These are things like their skilled nursing facility, short-term rehab, assisted living, which is McGivney Way, which is a memory care unit, the library, which some in the community have utilized, although that is closed now due to COVID, as well as the Mother House Chapel, which is used by the public, which is also closed due to COVID. The agreement will note new uses that will be open to the public, such as independent living apartments, and that is when a certificate of occupancy is issued, which is anticipated for November 2020. And again, this would be in the old agreement that we had, multiple family and high density residential housing was allowed at that time under that agreement. And again, this would just simply be the same thing, although it would be new to the facility. Uses that will be open to the facility at a point in the future are quite interesting. They include a restaurant, including a bar, and a bistro, which is a separate part of the restaurant. And finally, they are looking at the possibility of having a creativity center that might have or teach art and sewing and pottery and those kind of things that may be open to the public at some point in the future. So it's anticipated that the restaurant and the bistro will be basically for those persons that live in the complex, but they're anticipating that, again, that they may open to the public at some point. I don't know if Mr. Cochran has any comments or thoughts on this, but we've met with them, and I think everybody was pretty much in agreement that it met the spirit, and I think the changes that are going on at the IHM complex, and at this point, the Community Development Department is certainly supportive of those. And with the contractors that the IHM has hired, I know the building department has had a very good working relationship with them and have found them just to be of the highest quality. So again, it's been a good working relationship with a lot of the construction related into this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Cochran, any additional comments or reviews?
Nothing additional. Jeff covered it pretty well, I think.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So this is item 2913. Mr. Pastu, if you don't have anything further, Councilman Felder.
Thank you, Your Honor. There, I believe, at one time was an operating theater on the site. Is that being included at all, or involved, renovated, anything like that? Is that the activity center that's being suggested?
No, that's on the school side. And at this point, I think that is shut down completely. And actually, it's just kind of mothballed at this point. So this is all over on the mother house side of the complex and in the back.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. I mean, I think that they do great work. I think that the mother house certainly is a gem in this community, and to the extent that they can, be more involved in integrating themselves with the civil society and here in town, I think that that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
The extent to which we can be helpful in that process, I think we should make every effort to be.
Yeah, for administration and for comments, I appreciate the update. There's so much that is going on there and some adjustments. I appreciate what currently is and what the current items are, but also the new uses as well. So looking forward and continue to develop for the good of the community as well. Any other comments from council? Seeing none, Mr. Pastou, your next item. You're muted, sir.
Sorry about that. Next item is, proposed sale of city property at 634 Church Street. I'll let Mr. Cochran go in detail with that item.
Thank you.
Yep. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Previously, we had discussed possibly splitting up a city-owned lot at 1733 Oak Street to facilitate the rebuilding of a house that had burned down at 1737 Oak Street, the neighboring lot. It was a very narrow lot, and so they wanted to have a portion of that city lot to bring their property into conforming position to be able to rebuild on that lot. Due to various circumstances, personal reasons with the family and the individual, they're no longer pursuing that option, but what they would like and are considering and requesting is the ability to purchase the city-owned property in discussion at 634 Church Street. The market value that we have with the assessor's office is $4,425, and that's what I've discussed with the property owner as possible consideration for the conveyance to allow her to build a new home in the city in the same area of the community. And so we're bringing that new idea, new proposal to City Council tonight for consideration and feedback and moving ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. I know that we received communication on this. Let's see if there's any comments. Councilman Lamore.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. Once again, win-win situation in my view. We get another taxpayer back in the rolls. They get a property that they value as something valuable to them. Why wouldn't we do something like this? So I think great job and way to reach out to that family and find something that they can be agreeable to. So thank you. That's great.
I will say, if I may, we did check with the other departments to look at the history of the site, why the city owns it, and things of that sort. At one time, there was a possibility to extend one of the adjoining streets through the site, but since one of the neighboring property owners has built a garage and expanded on their property, that would make that more difficult. So in checking with other city departments, there was no conflict in possibly conveying this property out of city possession.
Very good. There's no other comments. We'll look forward to that to be on a council agenda item in the near future as well. And, okay. Mr. Pastou, next item, and Councilwoman Germaini, also, if you have comments, just speak up, because I want to see on your call-in, it's a little more challenging. I'll make sure that I hear you.
I know. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, good. Want to make sure. Mr. Pastou.
Next item is Custer statute discussion that we have for tonight.
If you would. Well, let me start here, because I just want to kind of review where we currently are in some discussion and get some of the details of next steps from Mr. Pastou. As we're well aware, over the last couple months or so, there's been discussion on the Custer Monument. In its representation, its location, input from the community, input from outside the community as well, and which led to the position of the public discussion and how there can be a more balanced representation and discussion regarding the Custer Monument, but also as things are, it's also about the person as well, as we find in history that when there's monuments or recognition of a person, there's a broader discussion sometimes that maybe hasn't occurred. So that led to the formation from the council's direction of a kind of a gathering for the initial committee, which of course had city and county officials have had opportunity to meet, and from the county, of course, with the including the city manager, myself, assistant to the manager, Mr. Cochran, the Monroe County Museum Director, Annie Clark, as well as the Monroe County Museum Assistant President, and also the Michigan Historical Commission, Mr. Egan. So those were ideas of what would be the next steps. And that's kind of where we got to the present. And the idea is how to relate into the development of the process of what comes next. And it's definitely a complex discussion and will be something that's going to occur over time. But Mr. Pastu had provided the council with communication, and I thought it was important that we have some discussion today from council, but also gives the opportunity to give an update to the community that is either participating in this meeting or will get it through the record of this communication in watching the meeting later potentially. So Mr. Pastu, with that introduction, kind of like where we are, if you would.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. Part of it is just, elaborate a little bit further with that, while the discussion was taking place, even prior to that, I think it's important to note that the Monroe County Museum System had already been contemplating an update of their Custer exhibits. And so in many ways, the recognition on the city's part, as well as the county that to look at the issue itself and provide a cohesive, balanced approach to Custer in our communities. But our focus for the couple of meetings we had is developing a process, to tell the story. And at the end, we all agreed it's a complex, long-term project for even a small ad hoc committee to undertake. And certainly, given the deep-rooted opinions surrounding General Custer, any individual or ad hoc committee shepherding a project to tell the complete story would need to be experienced and credible to all stakeholders. Any process that would be perceived as having a predetermined outcome would be viewed, we feel, as biased and candidly a waste of time and resources. To that extent, the group felt a professional outside facilitator with proper professional credentials would achieve the objectives of managing this complex process that will take probably at least a couple of years, while they also have to maintain their historical objectivity, through the process in order for it to be viewed as a success. And so one of the things that we came up with was, listed a number of objectives for this project, and again, in no particular order, but one would be issuing an RFP to retain an external and objective professional to engage and facilitate a conversation with all stakeholders that would consider and present recommendations regarding the manner in which the Custer story should be represented to the greater Monroe community. It's likely that we would seek the assistance of an organization such as the Michigan Roundtable for Diversity and Inclusion as part of this process. The next objective is the city, Monroe County Museum System, and other stakeholders would work together, again, to develop a cohesive plan of community exhibits and other resources, including the Custer Statute, to provide a complete understanding of General Custer's role in the Civil War and the American Indian Wars, and how the military and United States policy initiatives influenced future U.S. issues related to race and ethnicity. The other thing we discussed is possibly pivoting this historical perspective of Custer as a possible tourist economic development opportunity that could complement the River Raisin Battlefield National Park. Since the War of 1812, the Civil War, and the American Indian Wars have had a profound impact on the United States policies regarding race, ethnicity, economic expansion, and in international relations. And I think on the end of it, we need to emphatically state and commit there are no preconceived outcomes regarding this process. But we also think seeking additional funding from grants and either through governmental nonprofit entities, along with donations to secure resources to successfully execute this project. We think we can find that in carrying forth this project. And so the immediate next steps that we've presented is, authorize an ad hoc committee to initiate the process to include 2 representatives appointed by the city, 2 representatives appointed by Monroe County. We're thinking in terms of, with the museum system, 1 representative from the county, from the community at large, and 1 representative with Native American heritage. Second, we'd request council appropriate $10,000 for this project. And then second, authorize submittal of a grant application from the Monroe County Museum System project fund up to $10,000 to match the city's initial appropriation. But in summary, I think we recognize this is a very complex, challenging, time-consuming, to do it the right way project, and we certainly feel that the credibility of the process is paramount in order to, successfully, initiate what recommendations may come out of this process. So, with that, I certainly don't know if Mark, if there's anything more you want to add with it, or Mayor.
No, not this time. I see Mr. Cochran. I think I see him saying no. So I think we'll see if there's any thoughts from the council. Of course, this is just a communication at this point, something that we'd be from dialogue or other input from the council regarding moving forward on these objectives, kind of outline or next steps that's being proposed. I'll see if there's any council comments at this point. Of course, there's always the opportunity to get with the city manager if is so desired for some other discussion. Not seeing any at this point. As Mr. Pastu said, this is kind of not only the update for the council, but for the community to know that things are moving forward, but there's going to be done in I guess, a methodical fashion. And we'll see this come forward to the council here, I would believe very soon, but also I think Mr. Pastu will be talking to another item in the communication at the end that potentially has some relationship as well and opportunities of resources. Mr. Pastu, if that, I guess we'll move forward.
Hey, thank you, Your Honor. Let's see, item 2934, we dropped. Mark, do you want to talk a little bit about the melon project?
Sure. Good evening again, Mayor, City Council. Wanted to bring back for discussion an item that was brought up and proposed at the River Raisin Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission last week. I actually think this is going to be the first actual recommendation coming forward from that body to City Council. So we're kind of excited. But earlier this month, the Melon Foundation, which is a nonprofit foundation that supports projects in the arts and humanities, announced a 5-year $250 million initiative to construct monuments to leaders of national significance with untold narratives that have not been historically recognized across the country. As you know, or may know, one of the activities areas in the Heritage Corridor Master Plan envisions an international peace garden with monuments on the north and the south side of the River Raisin, south of Winchester Street in the area of Route Park, or where the Winchester branch of the Monroe County Community Credit Union is. We've talked before that the National Park Service has been working diligently to form and strengthen relationship with the various tribal nations that were impacted and have stake in the story that is told at the national park, and to ensure that their perspective of the War of 1812, the battles of the River Raisin, and their aftermath is told at the battlefield. Of course, it's a perspective that's often been mentioned as a footnote, if at all, when discussing the War of 1812 and the battles themselves. So last week at the Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission, a proposal was discussed to make application for a planning grant through the Melon project at or the monument project at the Melon Foundation to develop a plan on how the Peace Garden could tell the unseen and untold stories of the Native nations, their resistance to westward expansion, and their removal from the area subsequent to the battles that took place. It could also incorporate the narrative surrounding the early French and native land transactions and their relationships along the banks of the River Raisin as well. So after discussing the proposal, the Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission voted unanimously to recommend to City Council to support an application by either the city or the Battlefield Foundation to incorporate this plan into the Heritage Corridor Master Plan and begin implementation of this development area, the Heritage Corridor. And the intent as well is to seek support of some of the tribal nations for this project too. So the Heritage Corridor felt it was a good idea, or the Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission felt it was appropriate to make application to the Mellon Foundation for this purpose to plan out how we could incorporate telling the untold story of the Native American tribes into the battles in the battlefield. So administration, with the backing, of course, of the Heritage Corridor Advisory Commission, is bringing this forward to City Council tonight for consideration, as well as direction for pursuing this opportunity. Again, this would be a grant to develop a plan for the concept with the implementation and the construction to come after. So as we talk about the Custer Monument, you know, there's been a lot of discussion about that and whether what we're proposing to tell or do at the Peace Garden area of the Heritage Corridor may not necessarily be statues. It could be other monuments or some other way to tell this story and incorporate it into the battlefield. But again, this would help us, similar to what we're doing with the Custer Monument, to look at how we would tell that story, what means and methods we would use within the Heritage Corridor.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. Vince, anything further? If not, I'll see if there's, I do want to get some direction. Are you looking for, I know it's under communication, something specific this evening, support, action, and also first, I think we need to hear if there's dialogue from the comments from the council regarding this.
No, the intent, I think, would be to have it on the next agenda for formal approval.
And that's the August 2nd, a week from today, correct?
November 2nd.
I say November 2nd, I'm sorry. And I think there may be some, if there's not inquiries now, obviously council members have the opportunity to request additional information if they need to be so. I think that this coming up, there is only urgency is to make sure you get submission in, because while it's sent out nationally, I understand they're getting many calls already, and it's something that would not want to miss the opportunity if supported. And I think that this, you know, I think about the corridor plan, and it is a great conceptual plan of the development. The national park is here, and they're moving items forward. I think as we look at those sections within the plan and this opportunity within this location, we've talked before about this over the years, you know, by the Historical Society's office location, there is a peace memorial monument there. And there's discussion about how that might relate to the property that's within the corridor plan. This does provide, I think, the opportunity to have a very broad discussion to make sure we're not, as it's always been from the beginning, to tell all stories, and the opportunities that this presents with this funding as well, I think would be something we should be pursuing. My understanding, I think it was asked at the commission meeting, Mr. Cochran, about match. I don't recall seeing that in there. I think it's straight funding, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, yeah. And we still have to determine what the amount we'll be requesting for, and again, whether it would be the city making the application or whether it would be the Battlefield Park Foundation making the application. We have to hash that discussion out as well. So it may not be us applying for it, but of course it will be on city property, given that Rauch Park and much of the land in that area is now owned by the city.
Very well. So I'll see if there's other comments from council members or inquiries.
Your Honor, This is Michelle.
Councilwoman Germaini.
I think it's great if we can get to this and get the grant and then have it in congruence with the Custer statute, because hopefully the timing would be around the same, would happen at the same time, which would be a great benefit for the city.
Thank you. I know that as the with the National Park Service and the commission and many members in our relationship and building relationships with the Wyandotte tribe and Chief Billy Friend, and those opportunities we had to visit in Oklahoma, and of course return visits from the Wyandotte tribe from other states and locations to Monroe and the Midwest region, but also Chief Ted Roll from the Wyandotte Androdon, who is the local part tribe of the Wyandotte and who sits on the commission as well, and his support for this. I think this is a great opportunity to jumpstart the conversation regarding our Native Americans, the impacts, not only the War of 1812, but afterwards, as Mr. Cochran said, and removal and things that need to be discussed openly and fully in our community and across our country.
Your Honor,
yes,
may I add something, Your Honor?
Yes.
If you look at the original Heritage Corridor Plan, the International Peace Garden section discusses an idea of honoring 200 years of peace between the United States, Britain, and Canada. There necessarily hasn't been 200 years of peace between the United States and some of the Native American nations, and that can't be lost as part of this discussion. So that's another idea behind possibly revising this section of the Heritage Corridor Plan, which of course is just a plan. It wasn't etched in stone and was designed to be modified as we implement this long-term vision over 20 to 50 years. So that's sort of the intent behind considering this perspective as well, and changing some of the dialogue that was in the original document.
Thank you. And I believe in that meeting with the commission, the Heritage Corridor Commission was looking at from that perspective as well. So Mr. Pasteur, Mr. Cochran, something specific you may be looking for from this evening from the council, or something that we'll see on Monday? Is there, if you would?
I think just before we go down the road of putting together a lengthy application and putting together a plan, just is this not looking for formal motion, but is this something City Council would consider us pursuing further and looking more into for possible council action down the road?
Okay, so it's kind of like consensus, but not action. So I am not hearing any opposition. So I think it's something we should be supporting, and the opportunity that presents itself, and Councilwoman Germaini has said as well. Any other comments or inquiries from council at this time? I'm not seeing any, so I guess we'll move forward. Thank you. Mr. Pasteur.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. I wanted, I'm not sure if Clerk Treasurer is able to pull up the November 2nd agenda that I put together. I sent you an email fairly late in the day.
I wasn't aware of that, so let me see what I can do.
All righty. And part of it is just to talk about, first and foremost, the meeting was regularly scheduled for 6 o'clock. There'll be no work session beforehand. Usually I try to keep that agenda light so that the clerk can get enough rest for the long day that she will have with the general presidential election the following day. So, but I also, this one was unique in that a number of items were originally scheduled for the October 19th meeting. We found ourselves in kind of limbo regarding the governor's, the validity of the governor's executive order to continue with remote technology meetings, and the signing of the bill by the House and Senate that took place just about the following day after we approved, sent the agenda out. So if I could just run through it real quick, again, 6 o'clock starting time, no work session. You'll see that the public hearings, there was 3 of them that we moved from the 19th to November 2nd to the delinquent housing rental invoices, blight notice invoices, and the delinquent weed and grass cutting. I've had reviewed a list of items for that where people have contacted the Department of Public Services and taken a number of those calls. We've looked at them. I'm not sure we'll have all of them resolved, but as we've done in the past, we would ask that you approve the resolutions that coincide with each of those public hearings, and give, as you have in the past, the ability of the manager and clerk treasurer to resolve any outstanding disputes that may arise afterwards. So you can see on the consent agenda, there is about one, I don't have any council action, so it goes right to consent after those public hearings. You've got the 3 resolutions that I had mentioned. There's a traffic and safety committee meeting later this week. We get into a number of items that we've already talked about tonight. Approval of the interlocal agreement with the county for the assessor of record. Authorizing and approving the sale of property at 634 Church. Again, considering an approval of the PUD amendment with IHM. And then again, the consideration of the grant application for the Mellon Institute Monument Project. A couple of items I didn't add on there as I was chicken scratching late this afternoon. But the personnel committee that we've been working with, including 3 council members, I would like to get the telework policy before the city council next week. Obviously, there's been a rise in the number of cases with COVID-19, and previously we've been functioning under the state of emergency and the governor's executive order as a matter of policy, but we think long-term it makes sense as well to have a telework policy for employees to be able to work from home. And then the other item I didn't put on there is that we will have a budget amendment and approval for work that MKSK has been working on. One being the design standards for the Lazy Boy site to develop the PUD agreement. And then MKSK has also been working with Mannequin Smith related to some of the design aspects of the project pertaining to the holiday drive and some of the open space area as well. So I would look to add that on there as well. So I'll put those items on the agenda. Again, I typically like to keep these fairly short and quick, but to get the clerk out as soon as possible for what we know will be a very, very long day the following day. So, Your Honor, that's all I have with that.
Very, very good. We'll move on to your, I think, your last communication item.
Yeah, and last communication item is, the Opportunity Center provided their fourth quarter report. We included it in there. A lot of times in the past, we probably would put this as a commission to accept and file. I know a couple of meetings ago, Stephanie and Manuel were discussed a lot of the activities at the Opportunity Center. I know I believe she's still on as an attendee to the meeting. If you had any questions for Stephanie, she'd be available if you want to follow up on it. But I would ask when you're ready for action to just to accept and to file that report.
Yes, Director Kazarsak is on, but I'll see if there's any comments or questions from the council regarding your communication. And I appreciate the placing the communication from the Opportunity Center to ALCC on the agenda in their fourth quarter report. As you said, we had an opportunity to review that, and it's great things that are happening, and I appreciate the reports that are very complete and detailed. Thank you. Other comments from council on the communications? Yeah, before we go to next item, Mr. Pastor, is there anything further you're looking for from council regarding your reviews here?
Your Honor, if you just, council would just make a motion to accept and file just the fourth quarter report from MCOP regarding the Opportunity Center.
Very well. Councilman Lamore?
Yes, Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we accept and put on file the fourth quarter report from the Opportunity Center.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilman Felder, that item 2936, the development budget summary from regarding the Opportunity Center at ALCC fourth quarter report be accepted and placed on file. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Germaini,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Pastu. Clerk, next item, please.
I have no other comments, Your Honor, or no other items, sorry.
Okay, so we're at council comments. In October, Councilwoman Germaini, comments this evening.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to make a comment about some of the citizen comments that were made at the beginning of our meeting. I do not support free speech, however. I do not condone any group that would threaten our residents or any groups thereof. We need to keep our residents safe. And Monroe so far has been a home for peaceful protests, and we need to continue that reputation. My other item is we need to be mindful of our trick-or-treaters this Saturday. Please drive carefully and watch out because it's getting dark and there'll be a lot of little ones out there. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Moore.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just want to give a brief dialogue to this here. I don't support nor denounce any politically motivated group or organization unless they inappropriately act out against the city, its employees, or any of its residents. I feel that a civil servant who supports or is supported by such groups can compromise their position as to how they vote on actions and agendas involving their municipality. That's why I don't seek endorsements as an elected official. That's it for that. That's my final comment on those items regarding some of the comments that were made earlier. Secondly, I want to say good luck to all the candidates that are running this year. A lot of people are running. They're great candidates. I wish them great luck this year. I want to repeat Michelle's comments regarding trick or treat this upcoming Saturday. Please be safe. Make sure that you're watching your way. And if you have little ones, take care of them and help them find their way throughout the streets. That's it, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Felder.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just want to reiterate and fully agree with what's already been stated by the manager, the mayor, and other members of council in terms of not tolerating violence, threats, or intimidation on behalf of the city. I mean, we started this meeting as we always do with an invocation from Clerk Lavoie that, among other things, speaks about inclusion, unity, and mutual respect. And I think that as we bring these issues up, that it's not about a particular case, it's about a broader conversation. And that conversation has everything to do with those issues that we talk about at the beginning of every meeting, and trying to put ourselves in a frame of mind that puts a respectful tone on the conversations that take place here. And I hope that that is a model for the rest of the community in terms of how it has these sorts of conversations. And I certainly hope that it delivers the position of the city and council on how it feels about how these discussions should be engaged in, with inclusion, with unity, and with mutual respect. That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Whitman.
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to just bring up another area that is going on in Monroe. I love living in Monroe. I love the police officers. I love the firemen. It's, it seems like Monroe is just really a safe place to live. But when you work in the world that I work in, I went to 2 funerals last week, and hoping I don't have to go to any this week. We have people that are dying left and right from overdoses. And I think it's wonderful that the government was giving the citizens extra money so that they could meet their bills and, keep their homes. And But not everyone uses that money for the right reasons. And right now, fentanyl is running rampant in Monroe County. And I don't want anyone, I don't want to catastrophize, but I don't want anyone to forget that these are human beings. They are someone's daughter, someone's son, and there's no magic fix. But if you could keep them in your prayers and, let's just try to keep an eye out on what's going on and call the police or do whatever you need to do to be able to draw attention to it and, maybe slow it down or something. But we are losing our people left and right, let alone to the virus. So we have our own little demon in every town. It's not just Monroe. So I feel like I would be slighting you if I didn't mention that. So thank you. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Halloween. The other day, at Paula's house, we had smashing pumpkins to smash out addiction. I had no idea that when I threw that pumpkin, it was going to bounce like a little tennis ball. It just rolled away, and the kids had to break it up for me, but we had a good time. And so, the kids are aware of what addiction is, and they try to do their part, and they suffer more than most of us. So I hope you all enjoy your Halloween and remember the children. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Vining.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. I had a couple things. I was approached earlier in the week by the family of Rance Allen, the Rance Allen Group. Of course, we know they're a world-renowned gospel group who found their claim to fame with mixing R&B and gospel music. Of course, we know we had them at the Jazz Festival, last Jazz Festival. And the request was, the family was asking me, how do we go about naming a street or showing some type of recognition? That led to a conversation with the mayor and some of the administration. And I know that a few years back, we had worked on a naming and monument policy. I know that had not ever been implemented, but I also know that my request from the Allen family is not the only request that we have received in recent years. And I'd like to propose that we begin the work on finishing up that naming and monument policy, and that the council be able to implement that policy so that we'll be able to address these requests in a more formal and orderly manner. I didn't know quite how to start the process. And I think if we had some sort of application or something to where the residents could go directly, it kind of takes us as the council people out of the initial process and helps move the process forward. So I don't know how far, or I don't know if Mr. Green is still on the line. I don't know how far we've gotten in that process. But with that many requests on the table, I think it'd be worth it for us to get started on implementing a monument and naming policy. I would imagine this would go along with this Mellon Institute request eventually. What are they going to put on the property? So I think it's all tying in together. So again, I ask that we be able to maybe put that on one of the agendas, upcoming agendas for a work session where we could talk it out and figure out what we're going to do about that.
Yep. Councilman, I think that's a good suggestion. I know we've had some internal discussions and, monument policy, monument naming policy should be separate. I think Mr. Pastou and Mr. Green are both on. I think it's an opportunity that at a work session that we kind of bring it forward and get some discussion with the council. And I think the better structure we have, I think I agree with you that it really puts the council then at the the final review of it and some authorization as opposed to at the very front. And I think it's a matter of putting some things in place. And I think Mr. Pastu and I did share your conversation as well we had earlier. And I think an upcoming work session after we get past some of the approvals on, of course, our zoning code, and some of those things are coming to a conclusion here next month. I think this would be a good lift, a good discussion to have, because you are correct, Councilwoman. There's about 4 or 5 now requests of possibilities that people are asking for consideration. I think that it's time to move forward. So I think your message is heard to the manager. I think we'll see that at a work session in the future. And I know Mr. Green will be prepared to give us an update then, but also maybe some what might be a possibility. So thank you.
Also, Your Honor.
Yes.
At the top of the meeting, before we took the citizens' comments, I believe it was you or Mr. Pastu spoke about the things that the city does not tolerate. And I think that was a great statement to make that clear. But I was wondering, does the city have any type of anti-racism or anti-discrimination policies put in place already? And if we don't, I think that's something that we need to look into. We've talked in the past about us not having any, our police force and our fire and even City Hall not being very diverse, even our very own council not being very diverse. And that could be for many reasons. But I think one way to address those things would be to have some sort of anti-racism and anti-discrimination policy set up for the municipality. And with that, I would personally, first, I need to personally denounce all forms of racism and any hate groups, any white supremacists, alt-right, whatever they call themselves. I personally, as a city council person and as a resident of the city of Monroe, reject and denounce those groups. One of the things, I don't know too much about these Proud Boys or whoever these groups are, but I think that racists and other discriminatory groups, they come to places where they feel comfortable being. And for whatever reason, they felt comfortable being in the heart of our city, that they would receive some level of support. I don't know if they expected the pushback, but I'm glad that they received it. But I think that if our city had some type of policy rejecting and clearly denouncing those things, that these type of groups wouldn't feel so comfortable being in our city and spouting any kind of hate rhetoric. And with that, I will propose that the city of Monroe drafts and plans passes a resolution clearly denouncing racism and all forms of hate groups in the city of Monroe. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Pastu may have some comments later regarding some of the policies regarding that internally with the employees and of course group, and then items of the potential of if the council moves forward with a official resolution or something in the future. I think that that's for review, and then we'll see as we move forward to other council meetings.
Mr. Buds has a comment, or his hand raised anyway.
Okay, I missed that. Mr. Buds.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just did want to make reference, at least at this point, if it's all right, regarding a city ordinance that does exist already inside the city's code of ethics, section 58(1)(c). states that the city of Monroe shall not tolerate harassment or discrimination because of religion, race, color, national origin, age, sex, height, weight, familial status, or marital status as prohibited by the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act.
Thank you. And I think that's probably something we, opportunities to present that also, not just at this evening's meeting and in our conversations. I appreciate you raising that. And I know Mr. Pastu will probably have some additional, if not tonight, in the future. Thank you, Mr. Buds. Oh, I guess it's mine. I'm next. Sorry. Just a couple items. I didn't say at the beginning, I probably should have started there because we're still in remote meetings. I gave the background of why we're doing those and the ability to kind of set the process, but the Open Meetings Act requirements, also Mr. Pastu reviewed the agenda items. So I wanted to just go back to, we canceled the meeting because we didn't get clarification enough to be able to continue to have a remote meeting. That came through and finalized, I think it was Saturday morning. And we didn't think it was fair because we already made a change of canceling our last meeting to have a special meeting and working with the clerk's office and appropriately posting. And it didn't seem right to go back and have the regular remote meeting and have people move back and forth. That's why Mr. Pastu did the review of items that we had today, but items that are upcoming. So people don't think that we're moving things around or why we started at 6 o'clock and why we're starting at 6 o'clock next week. The importance of making sure that the clerk, treasurer, and all our employees are prepared as we move into the election the following day. So I just want to review that quickly. The agenda that Mr. Pastu kind of showed and the clerk was able to assist and present is a draft agenda because, as he said, there are other things going. So don't take that as the final agenda. The clerk treasurer finalizes those agendas. And I'm not speaking for her, but I just didn't want to miss the opportunity because there will be, I'm sure, an item or two that was mentioned there. The election, I know the clerk treasurer is going to review that, even though it's we're going to have another meeting before. But we do have my reminder to the council that we have a council commissioner public accuracy test tomorrow. And those that have agreed to be there, and I'll have clerk treasurer, I'll ask her to remind us of that time and location and those in the public as well, because it is making sure all is functioning for the election as she's done so well in the past. And I know will be as well here. A couple consent agenda items I just want to review because they're important. We did talk about the MCOP, so I won't go further with that. The CDBG of funds and items related to the annual action plan was approved. And those are important funds that are spent in federal dollars to making our community better and addressing all of our needs and special needs and social needs as well, and how we utilize those funds that are in a variety of locations. So, and I'd ask people, if you have an interest, please look into that agenda item in the attachment. The other one was an agreement that we've talked about a couple times, and it's an agreement with downtown business there at Scallywags about how we make the community more keeping and retaining business and improving things that we can do in partnerships. Just an example of a partnership that we have. I think that I'll leave my comments at that this evening, and I'll close where we started as well and what council has said. And I think that the council, as Mr. Buds has said, we have items within our code of ethics and how we operate. I appreciate that we as a council continue to operate in a fashion that does denounce and does not support any form of prejudice, racism, discrimination, and that the council, and not only by our comments tonight, but our actions of how we've moved forward. I think we've had demonstrations and protests in a peaceful manner. I think that that's encouraging to know how our residents are and those that are here. I'll close at this point, and I'll see Clerk Treasurer Lavoie, your comments this evening.
Yes, I'm making my notes so that I don't forget anything, because we will have another meeting just prior to the election, but this is a very busy week as well for the election. So just to let the residents and council know, in about this time in 2016, we had about, I don't know, 16 or 1,700 absentee ballots returned. We have 4,045 returned this year, with more out waiting to be returned. The city of Monroe has traditionally lagged behind most other trends that we see in elections, at least during the time period that I've been here. But this year, obviously, you can see that absentee voting, which has sometimes been referred to as early voting here in Michigan, we're on track, as is the rest of the country. It's been a very, very brisk business when it comes to that, and we are no exception. This week, with regard to absentee voting, and I do want to take a moment to say this, in the state of Michigan, early voting equals absentee voting. You receive a ballot, you put in your application, you receive a ballot, you can vote it at home, you can vote it in the clerk's office. And this is true of any township or municipality other than the city of Monroe as well. You would have the opportunity to vote in that office if you so choose. And then you can hand it back in. It'll be in your sealed envelope with your signature, and it won't be opened until election day, or you can drop it in the drop box of your clerk's office. So all that is to say, every day the city of Monroe clerk's office is open 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. We do not close for lunch, so there shouldn't be a time that you can't come and request your absentee ballot. By 5 o'clock Friday, all the ballots that have been requested will, by mail, will be mailed. We are prohibited by law from mailing after 5 o'clock on Friday any absentee ballots. We will be here on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. issuing absentee ballots to voters. We are here specifically to issue and to receive absentee ballots. And then Monday, November 2nd, we again will be here 8:30 to 4:30 with absentee ballots still being accepted, still being issued. However, on that Monday, you cannot leave City Hall with your absentee ballot. It is the last day to request a non-emergency absentee ballot. So if you want to vote by absentee, make a plan to get here either this week or make your request this week so we can get it in the mail, or Monday, November 2nd at the latest. Finally, as you are aware, there are places throughout Michigan that will be able to open their absentee ballots and get them ready for counting on the Monday before the election. The city of Monroe does not fall into the population threshold, so we will not be doing that. However, we are impacted by it because if you have voted your absentee ballot, if you have turned it into our office, but have changed your mind about one of your votes or many of your votes, you can come to our office until 10 a.m. on Monday, November 2nd, and request to spoil that ballot and make a change and get a new ballot. After 10 o'clock on Monday, November 2nd, that will not be the case. And that is a change in the law. So I think that's a lot. I understand that. Miss Egan, Director of Communications, has done a great job of posting these items on Facebook. Of course, the clerk's office, we are here to answer many of your questions, all of your questions. We've gotten so many, and we really appreciate having the opportunity to be able to help you and serve you in this very, very complicated election. So please give us a call at 734-384-9140. If you have any questions, or if I've confused anyone tonight with all of this information, there's just no easy way to communicate everything that's going on with the elections, particularly this year. Finally, I wanted to say that there's been a lot of talk about elections and the integrity of the elections, et cetera. I just think it's important to thank and remind residents and thank the people that are participating in the election, because it's not me or staff that will be counting the ballots or guiding voters through the process on election day. It's actually our friends and neighbors, residents, registered voters of the state of Michigan, residents of the city of Monroe, and some from the additional neighboring townships. They step up, and many of them have. We've had a great outpouring of support and volunteerism from from residents who want to work the elections. So it'll be your friends and neighbors that'll be counting those absentee ballots. It'll be your friends and neighbors that you'll see at each precinct, helping to guide you, helping to keep the precinct safe and secure your vote. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that. It should be familiar faces at the precincts when you go there. And finally, the departments have done a great job here at City Hall in stepping up. I thank City Manager Pastou for his leadership, and I've got great cooperation from police and fire and DPS and so many others within Mark Cochran, as I mentioned, Director of Communications, Jody Egan. It's really taking a village to pull this election off, and we appreciate everyone joining with us. And of course, Mr. Buds will be working alongside of us on election day should we need any assistance from him, and we appreciate his help with that as well. So thanks for everything to everyone. Again, if you have any questions, 734-384-9140 is the number, and we will be here the rest of the week from 8:30 to 4:30 and Saturday 8 to 2.
Thank you, Clerk LeBroy.
There is one more thing.
Yeah, the public accuracy test.
Yes, the public accuracy test, which is really important. It's a great way to, it's obviously mandated, and we test the equipment and we make sure that the programming is working correctly and that the ballots as they go in, the numbers that come out are what they're supposed to be. So the Election Commission conducts that test, and it is tomorrow at 9 a.m. here at City Hall. And I have council person Lamore, Whitman, Germani, and Clark, who are also members of the Election Commission. They will be they're scheduled to conduct that public accuracy test. So I look forward to seeing you at 9 a.m. here at City Hall. And it is a public meeting of the Election Commission. So if there is any member of the public that wishes to come and join us, you are welcome to watch the meeting. And I think that's it now, finally.
Okay, thank you. And if there is those that come from the public, of course, we are managing social distancing as well as masks within the City Hall for the safety of all, and those that are our visitors, and we'd ask that be accommodated as well. So thank you. You know, when you look at your list, and I had my list here as well, and I recognize that there's one I didn't report on. I want to, because it's an item that the council has discussed a couple times, and I know that we received correspondence, but I think it's important to share with our residents, and that was from our finance director, Mr. Sell, the 2020 refunding bond pricing results. And I know that several council members, if not all, have sent back their thank yous to the administration and Mr. Sell for his diligence of watching as he does with our finances. So there was a refunding bond issue that the council authorized back on October 8th, and was closed on October 29th. The sale of our bonds, which we've had previously, or the resale to really reprice and show benefit financially, the 2012 refunding bond on water, the 2012 capital improvement bond, which were the bridges, the 2012 capital improvement bond on the DDA, and the 2013 capital improvement bonds regarding water again. And those were reissued and savings of over 11%, will generate a cash flow savings of approximately $950,000 over the remaining life of the bonds. And that's just exceptional. My thanks and kudos to Mr. Sell for the fine work and administration. Yes, we should also be thumbs up and clapping, because it really does put the city in a much better financial position, opportunities that present them. And it's because he's watching our finances and the opportunities as they present them. But to have that kind of a saving is pretty fabulous, remarkable. So again, Mr. Sell, our finance director and assistant city manager, thank you. We appreciate your efforts always. Mr. Pastou, your comments here this evening.
Thank you, Your Honor, and I'll just echo that last sentiment. That's a pretty remarkable net present value savings. I don't think I've ever seen anything approaching that before, but it certainly frees up some money in those operating funds going forward. So just the one item or two items, I will follow up on some of the items that we talked about tonight where I need to report back to council, and I will do so here shortly. And then just to let City Council know, and I apologize, I haven't sent out a update for a few weeks now, and I've been meaning to, but I do want to let you know as of administration's plans to close City Hall on Election Day for everything other than election activity. There'll be a lot of activity taking place in City Hall, but primarily our two biggest activities during the day are going to be the building department and the water, wastewater utilities operations. But I do plan on closing it. Part of it is there's going to be a lot of activity. The social distancing is still going to be a challenge. And certainly with the caseload with the COVID-19 pandemic increasing, we just think it's the most prudent thing to do. And so we'll end up closing it other than for election purposes that day. So other than that, I have nothing else to report on tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Pastu. So next item is citizens' comments. I did see there was one hand up already. I think Mr. Denton. And then we'll see, Clerk, if you could manage those, I'd appreciate it. And we'll get started.
All right. I have moved Graham into the queue, so you can go ahead.
Welcome, Graham. Graham, your name, of course, and also your jurisdiction of residency. Thank you.
Graham Denton, 217 West 2nd Street, Monroe, Michigan. Just wanted to say thank you for the Custer update. I figured it would take a long time for something like that. And I appreciate the seriousness of how you're going about it. I really do. I completely agree with Councilperson Vining about having an official policy. And I think Mr. Buds also for mentioning that as well. The whole purpose of the 1960s demonstration resulted with legislation passing, and that was the important part. So maybe you could even expand, the city of Monroe could go ahead and expand on that legislation and, like she said, a more encompassing thing. I think that's a great idea. That kind of brings me to my next point of, when I drove by that demonstration at 12 o'clock, there was one plainclothes officer and one cruiser at 12 o'clock. But from what I saw in the videos, there wasn't police present when the assault happened or before then. And I was just kind of wondering, maybe we could update, our policies of anti-racism if we expect a group like this coming in. That would be a good idea because we don't want our citizens being harmed. And as you said, I can't say anything that's already been said, kudos to the people who have already protested in the peaceful way. That's exactly what we want for our citizens of Monroe County. Just a few questions. Did you know the Proud Boys actually venerate the housewife identity? So half of city council and those elected officials, those people who have careers and are female, they don't identify with you. And so anyone supporting that group in that sense would also take that stance, I guess. It's a hate group. And of course, First Amendment rights are protected, but it's not a stretch to officially denounce. And I appreciate that you guys already have, most of you anyway. It's kind of what I expect our leaders to do, and like I said, I guess I'm disappointed that not everyone can simply do that, just even as a gesture. My final question would be, and why is it that, and this addresses city council, why is it that one member who might be elated in position of the community, why are they allowed to use their position to personally attack a private citizen, but the private citizen cannot levy allegations against them? I feel like that's really hypocritical. And so, maybe you want to revisit your policies and your protocols to see if any were broken by any council members by doing that action, because it does seem, okay, so we can call out personal citizens, or you guys can, but we can't call out your actions. I understand that. It was mentioned in the rules before. That's why I'm addressing council with that question. But thank you again for all the work you guys are doing. I'll meet with Mr. Pastu hopefully soon and give him an update of who I've been talking to as well, all the representatives that he sent me out to seek. Thanks again. Hope everyone has a great Halloween. And yep, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. Clerk Treasurer, other comments? I see a couple hands. I don't know who they are, so if you would move them.
So we have Katie Beth.
Well, okay.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you guys with the Custer stuff. I was listening to all the possibilities. I also while I was doing a project for a news outlet, I had to go around town, and while you guys are doing the stuff for this site and what you have projected, there is the water fountain that is across from the courthouse. And that water fountain is on top of a Native American burial ground. The plaque donations with the donators is huge. And then there's only a little small square down at the bottom of the fountain by the ground that states that that fountain is actually on top of a Native American burial ground. So I was just wondering if you guys could possibly add that into the list of things to update. And that's it. And thank you guys for everything. Hope you have a happy Halloween, and everybody stay safe out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie Beth. Clerk Treasurer, I see there's 3 more.
I was looking to see if I had any additional comments, Your Honor, but email to me or something, because sometimes people do that, but I have nothing.
Sure.
Yes. All right, we have Whitney.
Whitney, your name, location of residence, please.
This is David Degree, and I'm here with my wife, Whitney LeBeau. We both wanted to make, we weren't able to attend the first part of the meeting, so we're at Buffalo Run in Dundee, Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, we weren't able to attend the first part of the meeting, but we wanted to echo some of the comments about denouncing the hate groups and white supremacist groups like the Proud Boys. From my own perspective, I've seen a stark contrast between the protest or rally by the Proud Boys and the peaceful protest done by the all the Black Lives Matter supporters. And it's obvious that one of these groups invites confrontation and violence. And I'm personally a little worried. We're voting absentee, but I'm a little personally worried that some of these groups might show up as "quote unquote" poll monitors on election day, and if a large number of these people do show up, there's many voters that will see them and turn around and go home. And I hope that anything that could be equivalent to voter intimidation, such as this, won't be tolerated on election day. So, I mean, that's the main thing that we wanted to express. And again, we wanted to echo some of the comments made earlier in support of all those comments. So.
Thank you. Clerk Treasurer?
I just wanted to address that for a moment. Obviously, I don't want to go into a lot of details about the plans that we have in place for Election Day. I appreciate the concern being brought up, and yes, we are aware that there are a number of potential things that could happen on Election Day that have the possibility to disenfranchise voters. And I just want to assure the public that we are working on that and have included that in our plans. So thank you for bringing it up. But we are definitely working on it. So thank you. I have Cody.
Cody?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Cody from Monroe, Michigan, South Macomb Street. First, I want to echo Katie Beth's statements about the fountains. I've seen that myself, as well as had one of my Native American friends comment on it to me, that there are several plaques surrounding the fountain, the majority of them of a brassy, bright luster, but the one plaque that states that there were Native American remains found on it, dating to pre-Columbian eras, is not of the same luster, as well as positioned by the bushes where it could be easily obstructed if those bushes are not trimmed properly. So I think it would be fair to put on a new plaque of the same luster as the other plaques, of the same size as the other ones, and in a different position where it would be more easily visible to the public. Secondly, I also want to echo other people's comments earlier about groups such as the Proud Boys and denouncing white supremacy. I appreciate Kelly Vining's statement explicitly denouncing white supremacy. I know that a lot of these groups these days are trying to avoid scrutiny by tiptoeing around the terminology they use for plausible deniability. So I believe that direct statements that specifically focus on the correct terminology are the best to earn confidence from the public when it comes from governing officials. And I also want to expand a bit more about the nuances of the issues faced by groups such as the Proud Boys, because even though they explicitly state that they're not racist, they support many racist ideas, and on top of that, they fit many patterns that historians like Robert Paxton classify as being fascistic, including, under his list of different qualities of fascism, that they focus on the supremacy of their own group. Supporting the group feels more important than maintaining either individual or universal rights. Believing that one's group is a victim, this justifies any behavior against the group's enemies. The belief that individualism and liberalism enable dangerous decadence and have a negative effect on the group. A strong sense of community or brotherhood. The brotherhood's unity and purity are forged by common conviction if possible, or by exclusionary violence if necessary. Individual self-esteem is tied up in the grandeur of the group. Paxton called this enhanced sense of identity and belonging. Extreme support of a natural leader who is always male. This results in one man taking on the role of the natural savior. And the beauty of violence and of will, when they are devoted to the group's success and a Darwinian struggle. Paxton wrote the idea of a naturally superior group, or especially in Hitler's case, biological racism, to a fascist interpretation of Darwinism. So I think that it's important to understand the terminology that we need to use in understanding the nuances of the issues that these groups and organizations support and what sort of threats they pose to members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Clark, next item or a comment, please.
We have Cole.
Cole, your comments?
Just one final comment. All I wanted to say, and I'll make it real quick because I know it's late. I think the inability to individually clearly say in simple terms, I denounce white supremacy. You don't even have to say a specific group name. I denounce white supremacy. I denounce transphobia. I denounce hate in our community. Speaks volumes, honestly. So the people who were not able to clearly say that, I would urge you to try to make sure that you do say it as a person, not even just as a city council, but you are in a leadership role, and it does mean a lot to your community to know that you don't agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Cole. Clerk, I think I see one additional. Maybe that was it.
No, I don't think that there are any others.
Nope, yep, it's dropped. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn is, need a second.
I'll second.
Motion from Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilwoman Germaini to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Germaini,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Whitman. Whitman,
Muted.
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes, and we're adjourned. Thank you all for this evening and all the comments and conversation. Look forward to the next meeting as things move forward.